Okay, thank you all for our side event. My name is Michael Specjalski. I'm from the Pantarey Foundation, which is a Warsaw-based NGO, public diplomacy NGO, and we are working mostly also from 2018 in trans-border issues, mostly family issues. And today we're going to have our side event, which is Norwegian violations of the private and family life. This is a topic that we are involved from 2018. Today we're going to have guests from Norway. We're going to have expert in human rights, Marius Rekeros, who is quite famous in the whole world to advocate these issues, and he's going to give us a kind of a state of affairs for now. What is Norway still violating this Article 8.2 of the European Convention of Human Rights? Does it's changed here interior policies and interior law in this regard? And then we're going to have two case studies. Mrs. Osne. Mrs. Osne is in Poland from 2017 and she's applying for asylum. I don't know if you know, but in 2019 the Polish government issued a first asylum, so political asylum for a Norwegian woman, and it was the first asylum given by the Polish state after the Second World War for the Western citizen, and in the fields of family rights. And it was, of course, about violations of the so-called barnevern or fylkesmenn, of the whole system of childcare, not proportionally interfering in the family in the democratic society. So this is the quote from the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights. And then we can have Kire. Kire is also Norwegian, and he's going to speak about his case with his son. And the last part is going to be our discussion and questions from the audience. So, not further ado, Marius, could you give us the state of affairs of these violations for now? What are the judgments? What is the topic? You can give maybe a short introduction, because maybe not all know this topic, because Norway is trying to give its very good public relations, not to talk about this topic so much.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. Very happy to be back in Warsaw. I'm deeply impressed with the support the Norwegian families have received from Polish authorities, as well as Polish NGO and Polish lawyers the last years when it comes to these cases. As you may be aware of, Norway has received like a reputation worldwide for a very notorious CPS system, meaning that most of the countries that I've traveled to, and that's a lot, they claim that Norway is taking children away from their biological families for very flimsy reasons. And it's hard to convince a world about that a country like Norway, where everyone thinks of Norway as like a prosperous country to live in, that such a country can do such harm to perfectly well-known families. But in fact, that's what we are going to talk about today, that Norway is actually violating the very fundamental rights of the European Convention of Human Rights in a way that is very disastrous. Up to now, since September 2018, so 5 years back in time, Norway has been convicted 25 times in the European Court of Human Rights for violating Article 8 of the Convention. That's a massive number when you think of Norway as a country with a little more than 5 million people. If you compare that to the other Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, you will find that these countries, the neighboring countries, they have 0 violations with regard to family rights, whereas Norway has, like I said, 25. Makes it a massive problem, and obviously Norway has tried to hide these very dark secrets to the world. I listened to it would be, in my opinion, would be very clear if you have like a human rights conference like you have annually this year in Warsaw. The ambassador of OSCE, the Norwegian ambassador to OSCE, would have told the world that Norway has some problems with these violations, but they try to keep silent about it, try to keep it under the rug. Whereas I think that this testimony, my speech, as well as these testimonies that we're going to hear today, will prove to the world that we are suffering from some severe problems with the human rights laws. And why is that? Well, you have to take into consideration that until 1989, until the late 80s, Norway took about almost 2,000 children from minority families in Norway, trying to assimilate them into Norwegian culture. Those were what we call the gypsies or the minorities traveling around in Norway, where the government were always on the hunt for these children, and it took, as I told, almost 2,000 children from the 50s until the late 80s. That is, of course, a massive violation of these rights, which could have been brought to the International Tribunal in Hague for crimes against humanity. And then what we saw in the early 90s was that they continued to do exactly the same system, but in a little different way. That they attacked a lot of families they think were vulnerable and weak, and they put them into these families who were like, asking for children to be adopted or to be taken into public care. So this has been like an ongoing problem for decades. And this has been a very dark secret in Norway for so many decades. And of course, when you think of Norway as a very good country to live in, with a small population, it's very difficult for the outside world to realize that these atrocities are actually and have been going on for so long. My first experience with these issues was back in 2010, and I have 2 daughters myself. I've never had any problems with the CPS system myself, and I strongly support to have a CPS system because obviously there are some parents who are not able or particularly fit to take care of the children. But back 13 years ago, when I was asked to attend a demonstration outside the Norwegian Parliament, I promised these victims who were like the parents were sitting next to me today, victims who had been taking the children away, to look into these matters. And what struck me when I looked into these cases on a very random basis was that most of these cases were not being reviewed by the Human Rights Act at all. And as a human rights activist and a lawyer, I realized that this is really something that could this really be possible, that we have ratified all these conventions and we don't even care to look into them at all. So that's what, and then in 2010, I tried to convince the European Court of Human Rights that something severely wrong is going on in Norway, my own country. But I was not taken seriously because the court at that time didn't believe they couldn't be that bad in Norway. And they had so many other problems in so many other countries that they couldn't deal with, like child welfare problems in Norway. So it took another 5 years until 2015, where we had this very infamous lobbying case, which I brought into the European Court in 2013, December 2013, where the court realized that maybe there is something wrong with this system. And then, for the first time in 2015, they communicated this lobbying case to the Norwegian government, said that, is it really that bad? We want to hear your explanation about what's going on in the country. And of course, the Norwegian government denied all the accusations, said that no, we are only taking children into public care if it's absolutely necessary, and he is exaggerating, blah, blah, blah. And then the year after, in 2016, we had a major breakthrough when this also very famous Budnario case, which raised attention worldwide, took place, where 5 children were taken into public care in a small community in the west part of Norway from a Norwegian-Romanian family. And this Norwegian-Romanian family managed to get support worldwide, and there were hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, actually, who were making demonstrations against Norway. And even the government of Romania came to Norway in February 2016 for one purpose, and that was to bring these 5 children back to the biological family, which didn't succeed at that time. But the pressure worldwide was so big that in June 2016, 5 months after the children were taken into public care, they were returned to the families. And this caused so much attention that the Council of Europe, which is the largest human rights organization in the world, decided to draft a resolution particularly pointing to Norway, that something must be done about the family law in Norway. And 2 years later, in 2018, a resolution was drafted with a majority of the members saying that Norway has to revise its family policy. And that was like the breakthrough as well for the European Court of Human Rights. When this resolution was drafted in 2018, the European Court of Human Rights made a massive pressure upon Norway by communicating more than 40 cases to the Norwegian government on one particular area, the child welfare law. And of course, the first and the Mayo case that was held in the Grand Chamber there was an oral hearing in the Grand Chamber of the European Court, which is the highest court in Europe with regard to human rights issues, was made in October 2018, 3 months after the resolution was made by the Council of Europe, where the government was put on very harsh pressure, and shortly after, Norway was convicted in the first case called Jansen versus Norway, and then after that, on September 10, 2019, Norway was convicted in Lubben versus Norway in the Grand Chamber, and following Lubben versus Norway, we have received another 23 convictions, one more in the Grand Chamber, proves that Norway has a massive problem with this child welfare policy. And the good thing is that you will hear today two testimonies that are very similar to all these cases, because these cases are extremely similar. That they take, it's a very clear pattern here, and I'm very happy to see that the only way a lot of these people can escape these atrocities and to save their children is actually to flee Norway. I've been to at least 10 countries around the world where I've met families who had no other choice but flee from Norway. Dubai, even Ethiopia, Colombia, Panama. There are so many countries where people have fled to because that's the only way not to lose the children. And the interesting part is that there is a very specific pattern in all these 25 judgments where Norway has been convicted. And that is that they claim that these parents are particularly unfit when the child is newborn, and then they take the children out of their custody, and they adopt them very, very quickly. So it's like a very clear pattern here. First, they take the children when they are only a few weeks old, then they adopt the children to some random families, and then they say to the families that now it's too late anyway to claim or to try to get your child back because the time has elapsed and now the child has adopted into a new family. So these are obviously my opinion, and as I say, I'm not biased in this because I've never had anything to do with this CPS system myself. But I can see that there is obviously a very clear, what I will call, and when you have 25 convictions in the European Court of Human Rights, then you can talk about what I will say is more closely linked to what you call crimes against humanity, because these violations clearly qualify for the Rome statutes that are to the International Tribunal in Hague to deal with. So we'll see about that later. That can be another aspect of the case. But the interesting part now is that even with 25 convictions in the European Court, the Norwegian government is doing nothing to facilitate the reunification between the child and the parents. And I have been struggling since the Lubben case, which was delivered by the Greek president of the European Court more than 4 years ago, 10 September 2019, to try to battle the Norwegian government to return that child, who's now 15, to his biological mother, as well as his siblings and his grandparents. It's a perfectly normal family. But still, the Norwegian government is doing nothing to do what it is supposed to do when it is convicted, by respecting the general principles of the convention, saying that when you have been convicted in the European Court of Human Rights, you have a commitment to restore the situation as if these violations did not exist. So it's very simple. If you're taking a child in violation of Article 8 of the Convention, you have literally been stealing that child, and you cannot hold on to that child as long as these violations are going on. You have to start the so-called repair process. But the Norwegian government is not doing that. And it's interesting because only 3 weeks ago, on September 12th, Norway made like a sort of like an unofficial world record in mass violations in one day. Because on 12 September this year, Norway was convicted 9 times in the European Court of Human Rights for violating the same article, Article 8 of the Convention. And in one of these cases, Ensbjørn Others versus Norway, where they took that child when he was like an infant. When that decision was made public by the European Court on September 12th, obviously what Norway should have done the same day was to return that child to their parents. But that, of course, never happened either. So the question is, why is Norway deliberately sabotaging these judgments from the European Court? And that question we have to ask ourselves, because it's also a very important question for the European Court of Human Rights, because if it is as easy for a country to sabotage or to destroy or violate the same articles that the court have judged Norway to violate, it means that the court has no practical meaning. It has more of a symbolic meaning. So a lot of the families I've talked to throughout the years, even though they have won in the European Court, they tell me that what's the reason to fight 10 years in the European Court if the only thing I can achieve is to get 25,000 euro in compensation? That's not what I went to the court for. I wanted to get my child back. So a lot of the people are unfortunately losing their faith in the international tribunal system, and they realize that the government of Norway can basically do whatever they want. And that causes a lot of course, anger as well as a lot of despair. And for these families who have won in the European Court, I mean, 25,000 euros as a compensation is worth nothing, as long as the main purpose of all these convictions is to regain or facilitate a practical way to return the children back to the biological families. But as of today, as we're speaking now, of all the 25 cases where Norway has lost in the European Court, not a single family has regained custody to the child. And that's quite dramatic. So that proves once again that Norway is, even though they have been convicted for so many times, they're still violating the same rights as they have been convicted for. So I can only travel around the world, try to address these serious issues, that something really has to be done, and we have to look into Norway in a different way. And we're facing mass scandals now about, political fraud. Norway is going through one human rights scandal after the other. It's a country full of political and legal scandals. But this is definitely the worst one, because this is about the most fundamental thing you can even imagine, that they're actually stealing children and they're actually refusing to return them back. So the only way for these families to actually, if they want to save the children, is to do what these people next to me have been doing: flee country and hope that the government will sort of like respect that. And like you said, it's quite sensational that Poland has been granted a Norwegian family asylum some years back, and you are also applying, and other people are applying as well. So, and I've been helping at least 10 families myself fleeing to Poland, and to be honest, I've been very impressed with the Polish society when it comes to protecting these rights of these families. So I hope that we can collaborate further, because these atrocities going on in Norway cannot exist anymore, and we have to do something about it, because people are dying. And people commit suicide because they're not able to stand these fights with the government. And the government has such an arrogant attitude towards the problem that they don't really care whether they are being convicted 2 times, 15 times, or 25 times. They don't care at all. And that's the worst part. So we have a long way to go, and that's why this conference is so important, because it gives another picture of Norway. Because everywhere you see ambassadors or travel around, Norwegian ambassadors travel, they like to brag about how good Norway is. I mean, a few months ago I was in India, where there was this premiere of this movie called Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway. Another CPS case where the Norwegian authorities took, literally stole 2 children from an Indian family who lived in Norway in 10 years, a little more than 10 years ago. And even though everybody agrees that they stole these children for no good reasons, they have not been able even to apologize for the Indian society or for these parents, not even giving them compensation. And fortunately, the Indian society as well as Bollywood made a movie out of this. It's a very good movie. I would highly recommend everyone to see it, Mrs. Shadi, because it tells a very good picture of what's really going on. But Norway put millions and millions of euros trying to stop this movie from being promoted worldwide. They didn't succeed. Thanks God for that. But it's once again a very important example to see that the only way we can stop these human rights crimes to continue is to put even more international focus on them. So that's why I'm very happy to be here today and to discuss this topic with you.
Okay, so we're going to go to OSCE in a second, but my comment is that those who don't know how this system works, we must outline that this decision of taking the children are administrative decision, state decision, and that you can those people can only appeal to the court, but there is no factual control of the judiciary like in the European continental system. Mm-hmm. It's one thing, and the second thing, what Marius said, that even you have a European Court of Human Rights, so the biggest court in Europe, judgment, you can go to the Norwegian court, and Norwegian judge judging that the compensation of 25,000 euro for losing a child is enough, and in the hearings we have judgments of the mainstream judges from that runs the association of judges in Norway that are saying that no, the child is not gonna be brought back to the family because the time passed so much, and the child is adjusted to a new system. So basically, staying in Norway, fighting legally in Norway, and fighting legally in European sphere of European human rights doesn't work.
That's true.
It doesn't work in practice. So those people are going out of Norway, and of course, they are of course by the prosecutor office in Norway counted as people that broke the law, as abducting their own children. And OSCE also had a criminal case in Norway. It's on hold. We don't know how it is, but it's like this. And I think a week or 2 weeks ago, we had a judgment in Warsaw Regional Court that refused Norway to send family of Norwegians back to Norway, saying that there is violations of Article 8 by Norway. So that's why Poland don't gonna allow Norway to take those people away. So it's securing as it can. Okay, so we're gonna go now to OSCE. OSCE, like I said in the beginning, is a Norwegian mother that came with her twin children in 2017, and from 2020 she applied for asylum in Poland, so a political asylum that already was given to another Norwegian, Silja Garmo, in 2019, and she's gonna give you a short introduction to her case, how it was, and please, Osna, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have Kira.
Hello, so you hear me good enough? My voice is loud enough? Okay. So, hello, I'm Osna, as Miho said. So today, here we are in beautiful Warsaw, discussing the condition of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So usually Poland has very beautiful weather, which I could only dream about in my country, Norway, where I'm from. But my life for the last 6-7 years, unfortunately, has had a much darker side to it. So today, I want to share my story and how Norway violated some of our human rights and fundamental freedoms as a family. Not only to shed light on my case, but by giving my example, I hope that I can contribute to changing the CPS system in Norway so that other families do not have to experience the same as us. In 2009, I gave birth to the most beautiful set of twins. I raised the children on my own with some support from my family. As a single mother, life was very hectic, taking care of home and children, studies and different activities. And on my own initiative, I applied for support from the CPS. I thought if there's a system for support, I wanted to use it. I didn't see it as a weakness, because my wish was to be the best possible mother for my children. And I attended various parenting courses, counseling sessions, and the family sometimes looked after my children. I had some free time. But of course, when you have a counseling lesson or a session with the CPS, you of course tell about the difficult and challenging situations in your life. And sometimes I could share that I could have a lower mood or some depressed thoughts. So I was a bit too transparent with the CPS when I look back. So over the course of these years, they made reports from all meetings and conversations. So the document pile was big. And some years later, they used the exact same documents against me, because they were supposed to help me, but later they turned the table and used these documents as a proof to undermine my parenting skills. And although I could have depressive thoughts, it does not necessarily mean that you are a bad parent. Because according to the Norwegian Child Protection Act, there must be serious deficiencies in care in order to make a decision on taking over care. I never had alcohol or drug problems. I don't have a serious diagnosis. No cases of violence or abuse. Of course, we had normal problems, like a single mother, but I strongly disagree that they were of a serious deficiency. So I took care of needs such as food, clothing, homework, love, care. We have many friends, family, did many activities together, because my overall goal is for my children to have a good life. But then the CPS started having supervision in our home. They also obtained a lot of personal information from various health institutions, which felt very humiliating and offensive. They interfered in our privacy and put our family under a lot of stress, pressure and fear, which created a bad atmosphere at our home. And my children started changing their behavior, which of course they made new documents about. So our right to respect for private and family life was violated. One of the supervisors reported that I did many things correctly, but that the children were sad, and it was a sad atmosphere in our home, which is strange because this is something that the CPS itself helped to create. After a couple of months, when the supervision was finished, the CPS sent a petition to take over care to the county board. In Norwegian it's called Fylkesnemnda. This county board deals with CPS cases, It's not an ordinary court, but a court-like body. Still, they have the power to decide if parents lose custody of their children. At the time, in 2017, the CPS won approximately 90% of the cases. Many of their expert witnesses are often directly or indirectly working for them, like supervisors, counselors, psychologists, etc. And it's very obvious that they have been talking to the CPS in advance before they testifying. Although the pedagogue in the kindergarten and my children's new teacher spoke in my favor, the county board is mostly trusting the CPS expert witnesses. The CPS also has much more time to prepare the case compared to the parent. So my right to a fair trial was violated. The CPS system is a large machinery that creates work for many people: counselors, psychologists, supervisors, lawyers, institutions, foster homes, emergency shelters, and so on. So there's a lot of money in circulation. It's likely to believe that many of their witnesses don't want to risk losing their jobs by testifying against them. So if you as a parent lose the case in the county board, often the CPS takes the children and places them, for instance, in a foster home or emergency shelter. And then if you choose as a parent to appeal to the district court, like Rekros spoke a little about this now, but then if you win in the district court, it will be difficult to get your child back, to return to the family. Because they will use this law and they will claim that the child has become attached to, for example, the foster home, and it will be harmed by being moved back to the parent. However, the paradox is that many children who are under the care of the CPS are moved from foster home to foster home or from institution to institution. And it doesn't take into account the damage it does to a child to be moved from the parents in the first place. So after the county board, when it was the summer holidays, we traveled to Poland. I want to keep my children safe and protected. In addition, I want to get other objective assessment, because the assessment I got in Norway was a bit subjective. It came to my knowledge that I lost the case in the county board. I was reported to the police, suspected of child abduction. The police made an arrest warrant, and I realized that I couldn't return to my country. The police searched our home in Norway and also put a lot of pressure on my parents. Our passports were cancelled and later taken from us. Our right to liberty and security was violated. In the beginning, the life in Poland was very difficult because we experienced a lot of stress, fear, pressure, and uncertainty. Our fundamental right to not live in fear was violated. I appealed to the district court in Norway, but was denied to participate online. I risked prosecution if I returned to attend court, and my family would have been torn apart. We started the process of applying for asylum in Poland. Due to the pandemic, the whole process was postponed. In the meantime, my children started in the Polish school, learning Polish, and we tried to adjust Polish culture and everyday life. So in 2021, the asylum hearings started. And then at the time we lived in another city. and we had to travel to Warsaw, and it was very tiring, stressful process, and the waiting for the decision. And when we finally received the decision, it was unfortunately negative. And then we appealed to the courts, and once more we had to wait. And once more it was a negative decision. So now my case is in the Supreme Court in Poland, the first case of its kind. So if I get the asylum, I will be the second person to get it after Silja Garmu. But now the positive thing is they have decided to reopen my case on the administrative level. So it's going in a positive direction, it looks like. So, and at the end I want to say, I still do love Norway, with its beautiful nature and its culture, and Norway of course has many good values, but the CPS system is very closed and they have too much power. As a Norwegian citizen, it was Norway's responsibility to protect my human rights. Of course, the human rights are universal, but they are also enshrined in the Norwegian constitution and Norwegian legislation. And they have to make sure that Norwegian institutions don't break the human rights. Because it has very big consequences for many people's and families' lives in Norway. So therefore I want to fight for my rights and on behalf of other families. So, and now I also love Poland. I've learned the language and the culture. They have focused on protecting family values. But most of all, I love my children. Thank you.
Thank you, Osna. We're gonna move now to Kyrie, but before I'm gonna go to pass to Kyrie, who has a very fresh case. I can say about this legal because I'm helping Osna with this legal things also in Poland. So the case now is in the higher administrative court in Poland, and we have a strange situation that of course we made a cassation, but also a prosecutor office of Poland made a cassation in for Osna. So we have state prosecutor office made a cassation for the judgment of administrative court refusing to give asylum. That was violations. And we also made a private cassation to the higher administrative court. And we are surprised that the office reopened the administrative process of giving the decision that was refusing before. So we are hoping that the Polish authorities are looking into this thing, that there were violations, and they're gonna give a second asylum for the second Western citizen after the Second World War in Poland, in a family case. So let's go to Kyrie. Kyrie has also quite a bit different case. You can give a short introduction to this case. Maybe I'm gonna bring it closer. Okay.
Yes. I will tell the story about my son.
You can.
My son's mother, my ex-partner, I met her for 10.5 years ago, and she had a lovely daughter, and she was only 9. And I supported this daughter and other friends with lots of good things, activities, and they loved me, every of these friends of her and all these children. And then later in life, me and Hilda, the mother, actually wanted to try to get a child, but we was quite old. We was 48, almost 49. So in this way, we decided to go to a clinic in Spain, and actually it was a success that she got pregnant on the first try, and this Norwegian system followed her child quite often because of her age, so they controlled her before she born. But when she born, he was 3.5 kilo, so he was very healthy. And we was actually always there for him. We was actually mother and father, so we had more was able to take care of him in a good way. But all this control we had to go through with that son of me. They when he was about 3-4 months, they thought that he was 20 gram less weight, because they have some kind of middle curve for general all children. And because of that, he didn't weight, he didn't have this 20 gram he should have. They sent Hilde, the mother, to the hospital in Drammen, where he was controlled by weight and also give him food through a snake from his nose through his stomach. But the doctor of the hospital, she always said that this child is very healthy and he don't need to be in the hospital, because it's just taking place there. And of course he should never get there. But when they had probably been there for 3 weeks, and the children's system, they wanted us to go to a family center, which the mother agreed with. I was also in that family center, and I think that it was a very good time, because it was clean and I was playing with William and everything was quite fun. Later they tried to take him, so we went to holiday to my sister in Denmark, and during the stay the lawyer of my mother, he told that the children's system said that we can return back to Norway, because they are not going to take him from us. So we returned back, and he went back in children garden, and then they started again. So that was quite a lie when we was in Denmark to say that they wouldn't take him. And we was in a move process. We moved from a house to another place, and then we separated us, because I had my own place and Hilde got her place. And the children's system, they sent this case to this another place where we stayed in Oslo, and they keep going this kind of circus. The first person who had responsibility for this case visit Hilda and William, where actually they stayed. I also was there quite much, but they blamed Hilda all the time. But the strange thing is that the first person said that William had a very good home, and she could see that everything was normal around him. He went to kindergarten straight by where she lived. So we relaxed. We didn't have that fear, since we got that feedback. But suddenly another woman get the case. They changed the person, and then very suddenly they told us they want to go to bring the child to another family. And it was very shocking for us, because we was kind of locked, since they told us that so very quickly. And then they opened this case in Fylkesnemnda, the first level. And we went there with a good head, because we had very good conscience. And this child he had a wonderful life, because I have made lots of photo recording which prove that he had a very good life. But then, when that court finished, we went to Poland. And when we stayed in Poland, the result of the court was negative. And the mother was very pressed in Poland, because her lawyer told her to come home and the children's system. They probably told her that if she come home, they're gonna figure out this in a good way. And they also contacted her father, which also made a press on her. And she had a job working in Norway. She was afraid to lose her job. She was afraid to lose the money. Everything was very pressing. But she was very focused to stay here. And I didn't know anything about her feelings about this. Actually, we went to the holiday to Zakopane for 5 days. And when we returned back from that holiday, it was a very nice holiday. And I have many movies about that. Next morning, she just put herself on the plane and returned back to Norway, where the children's system actually waited for them. And we had actually get some protection here during the stay we stayed. The situation they have about my case is they have actually blamed my mother's skill to have a child. And they haven't blamed my skills, so in that way I go free of this kind of situation. And now they have actually put him to some second parents. And Marius have told that they have to bring him back to the father immediately, because they don't have any rights to keep him away from me. But still he haven't got any answer for that. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I think it's very strange, all the situation. And of course, I know how the life William had, and I have very good conscience. And I also say that the mother, she's not so bad, and if she had been very bad mother, I probably would have done something about that by myself. But she had been working for many years she's an engineer, and then she have a daughter which is very strong, and she had also many good skills. So I think it's just a big bluff. But they have actually been attacking us from a young stage in William's lives. So I don't know what more I can say about this, but I still keep believing that I will get him back one day, because I have my good conscience about myself and my skills. But that shows how cruel that system is. I hope one day it can change, because this is horrible that so many people have the same situations going on in some different ways. But normally they take children away from, for example, one mother, because she's alone. But here we was a father and a mother. We had a house. Both of us had money, and we are just normally people. And still, they're able to just go ahead and just take the child away for no reason. So I just hope that things will change in the future. Thank you for telling.
Thank you, Kyria. So we're gonna before we're gonna wrap it up with some suggestions and of course propositions for the diplomats who are here and from representative of OSCE. I would like to bring possibility to ask questions. If anybody from the audience would like to have some questions regarding the cases and regarding the recommendations, or regarding any questions of what is about the topic of our seminar. Okay, so maybe.
No, just a very, very quick question. I'm sorry, because
yes.
This is a topic I don't know where I will concentrate. Just I'm very far from that. But,
could you introduce yourself?
Sorry, yeah. My name is Sebastian Perros. I'm the director of Central Asia Branch of Washington University. So, no, my question is, so you brought a lot of elements today, and I was wondering if you published some reports detailing all of that. I mean, one report or some reports which we could read. I would be very interested.
Mm-hmm. I think that there are reports about the system. We know that there is a report from 2020 from Bergen system. There was in Norway in Bergen Kommune, so the Bergen municipality. The local politicians set a coalition to check how the system is working in Bergen district, in Bergen region. and it was hard to manage this because they had some obstruction from the parties, but they managed to make a coalition, regional coalition, and they published a report from this Bergen region. It was official report, not an NGO. It was a public for the municipality, paid for the municipality by experts. It was very critical. So we know that there are some Norwegian interior reports that we can pass to you and describe how the system is working. Could you either any other reports that you can?
There were lots of reports. I briefly told you about the report from the Council of Europe, which was drafted in June 2018. That report is you can find on the internet. I can send it to you as well. There will also be a report regarding all these convictions from the European Court of Human Rights. It probably will be delivered in a few months from now, because I think that the European Court of Human Rights is like closing down the issues about Norway now, because they've been dealing with this for so many years. So now it's the time to recapitulate about all the judgments and to give like a brief statement. I think that I'm aware that the Council of Europe is going to draft a report on that as well, because this is like an extension of their own report back from 2018. So this probably will be one of the most interesting international reports that will be issued in some months from now, where all these convictions will be summarized and will give you like a brief overview of why Norway has been convicted so many times, and why this is not only about Norway versus the private party, but also Norway versus all these countries that have been like criticizing Norway for this CPS system.
But you, sir, if I'm not mistaken, were saying that you've been working on this issue for many, many years. You never published anything by yourself on that?
Yeah, I published a lot.
Okay.
Obviously, I've been involved in some of these cases as well. I was the one who brought the Lubben case to the Grand Chamber, and so I've been working on these issues for many years. I've been using Facebook a lot as my social media, where I have a lot of followers, where I do a lot of human rights work, but I also have done a lot of publishing about these human rights violations. I traveled all over the world, even to New Zealand and Australia, and told about these judgments coming from Norway. But basically the report, if you ask about an official report, obviously I have my reports, but that's not official. But I'm aware that the Council of Europe is about to draft, if not a new resolution, at least a new report that will at least recapitulate these cases and to give like an overview about why this has been such a systematic problem. As you may be aware of, the European Court of Human Rights is drafting, they're issuing judgments, and then you have the Committee of Ministers who are surveilling these judgments. So there will also probably be some reports from the Committee of Ministers as well, because they have not closed down these cases yet. I mean, if Norway respected this Lubben case back in 2019, they would have closed that case a long time ago. But since this case is still pending, and the Committee of Ministers are not satisfied about how Norway is like dealing with these judgments, the cases are still open. That means they're still pending.
We can also add that there are some general studies about this issue, but also our foundation, Pantarey Foundation, that is working in Poland in the courts. We are working in the grassroots. We are waiting for the final judgment of OSCE case, and then we're going to publish also a case study how this process was to give a kind of a bigger picture from the specific case. So Pantarey Foundation. We also have Mrs. Maja Ruben that is conducting as also psychological therapy. So we know not only legal issues but also complex PTSD analysis, because we are conducting also basically psychological help for those people. Most of those people have health problems because of the nerve system and complex PTSD. So we're also going to have a report regarding these issues regarding psychotherapy. Okay, so if there are any other questions to our guests?
Yeah, Yeah, actually, I've got one question. How it comes that Norway, as so well-developed country, is going away with all of the accusations? This is like, you know, I'm Polish, and in Poland, that wouldn't be accepted at all. Like literally, everything what we do is stated in front of European Union and other countries. And how it comes that Norway just, you know, is whittled away with everything. Like nothing will happen. You can't hear it over the media as well.
I can, Marius, before you say, when we contact the Polish Office for Foreigners to give this asylum, and they do their own interior report on Norway, we can read basically a public relations of Norwegian state in those reports. So the Norwegian government is paying a lot of money in EEA grants, is financing a lot of institutions like OSCE, but also other institutions. So this financial, we can say violence even, structural violence, using money to cover this and to silence this, I think this is the most crucial issue. Maybe you can add, Marius.
No, you're perfectly right, and the question is excellent because of how is it possible to conceal such human rights crimes for so long. And obviously the key word here is money, and Norway is obviously one of the richest countries on the planet, and the government is the richest government on the planet without doubt, and they have this ability to pay off countries as well as the population as well. I mean, Norway is a very good example on how you can financially dope your own population by giving them what they need, so that they don't have any particular interest in fighting for human rights issues. And most people in Norway, you know, they're quite okay, and they don't care to, and they're very conform about their situation. So why should they involve themselves with the injustice if it doesn't hit themselves? So I think that's but obviously money. I remember very well, I was involved in Lithuania for a while because there were some big human rights cases where Norwegian government took Lithuanian children into public care. And in 2015, 2016, Lithuania was really angry with Norway because of this. A few years later, nobody talked about it, especially on the governmental level. And why? Because Norway spent billions into the system, like they did in Estonia, Latvia.
And also exports a lot of gas to Lithuania, and of course we have geopolitical situation with Russia.
So obviously this is a big financial issue as well.
So we're gonna finish with some recommendations. Yes. So if the system is so closed inside Norway and the European Court of Human Rights system is practically not working. What you recommend for OSCE member states, for the officials of OSCE and international organizations that are in OSCE? Because Norway, it's also a member, quite distinguished member. So, what we can recommend as NGOs, as lawyers, as activists?
Well, the most important part is, of course, to raise even more awareness about these issues so more people worldwide can be aware of what's going on. I think that public openness is the only solution to the problem, because as long as the Norwegian government feels that this is like a issue that they have total control of, and they don't have to respect this judgment because nobody pays attention to it anyway. So the only way I see these problems to be solved, or at least to be looked after in a better way, is to make even more public information about the violations, and also for an organization like OSCE to be more aware of, to skip more of the blah 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 part and all this politeness going on. I've met some ambassadors myself throughout the world, and they have this issue that Norway has like the perfect image. So why should we? It's almost like it's almost impolite to even question the goodness about Norway. But we have to do that because we are here for one reason, and we are on the side of the victims. That's why we're here. We're talking the case of the victims, and that's why it's so important to to bring even more awareness of how the victims are doing. I think the statements we were here today, they're perfect statements of thousands of people are going through the same, and that's our mission.
Yes.
May I add something?
Please.
Because,
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a fresh employee in OSCE. However, I've been in many years worked for within the culture between Poland and the Nordic countries. So Norway is of my interest as well, and I've been tracing the situations mostly because of so many Poles live in Norway. 100,000 Poles live in Norway, and that what it seems to me were mostly cases for Poles in Norway and not Norwegian people. so that was what has amazed me, what you are telling about, because I was always associating it with
Foreigners.
cultural differences, for example. And that so many Poles were, or Poles children were taken by the Norwegian authorities. But now it looks like it's not that the only cases. But as far as raising awareness, I think that I've read a lot, because of so many Poles were struck with those situations. I think I read a lot about it in the Polish press, actually. So it was even a Polish film made on a story with the escaping people from Norway. But I just wanted to comment that thank you very much for your input, because it's very interesting that it was not only for the foreigners or immigrants and other cultures that are treated so, but that's the system somehow.
Keep in mind that one of the cases that Norway was convicted for in the European Court involves a Polish lady as well. It was one of the first cases after the Lubbock case where Norway was convicted. It's called the A.C. versus Norway. So you have cases, and that's something that the European Court has taken particular interest. Of course, they see that a lot of Norwegian families have been hit by this system, but also a lot of immigrant families. So when they summarize these, let's say 25 cases where the court has found violations, they realize that this is not only about Norwegian families, but more a general problem also with different cultures.
Yes, so the last recommendation from us, Pantarey Foundation, would be that ambassadors and states of OSCE started to make pressure on Norway to fulfill their commitments that they have, and also the Council of Ministers of the European Court of Human Rights and the European Council to pressure Norway and to start proceedings of systematic violations because of so much judgments in the European Court of Human Rights, and personal and particular states to start organizing sanctions against Norway, economic sanctions or political sanctions, diplomatic pressure, to force Norway to fulfill those violations of international law, because only other states can do it. And of course, money is important, gas is important from Norway, but this all works for the people. So we must focus on the basic rights, and also Norwegian authorities should change their policies, because it's not gonna go away. We're not gonna go away. If we have so much judgments, we have a lot of things to work in. So the media pressure, gonna be on them, and Norwegian government gonna lose their own opinion that they built after the Second World War. So I don't know if it's good for the Norwegian government to behave and to silence this, because there's gonna be a backlash, and in the end, the Norwegian families, the foreigners in Norway, but Norway itself gonna lose this fight, because we're not gonna give up.
No, it's very interesting. When I was in India in March, I talked to members of the Indian parliament. And of course, they're very upset with the behavior of Norway in the retrospect of these judgments. And since Norway not even gave an apology to Indian officials about these cases, so they were directly open to me and said that if Norway is going to continue this way, we're going to stop. We're gonna hit them hard by cutting down on the agreements that India is doing with Norway. And you know, India has a population of 1.5 billion people, so that's quite interesting as well. So that's something I'm going to be open about that on my social media as soon as well. That I will definitely accept the invitation from the Indian ministry and say that if this is how you go, since you're not respecting the human rights issues, well, we're going to work on different how we can attack you further by, you know, at least by going to different countries and uplift the agreements you have, for instance, with Indian telecompanies or whatever it is. So it can be of huge substantial or financial character as well. So we'll see.
So thank you all for coming to our side event and our viewers on our social media, because this is also going to be it's live streamed and it's going to be published also on our pantarey.org site, also on Marius Riqueiro's very big social media, not only in Norway but in whole world social media. So you can watch it later. Share it, please share it, like it. That this information gonna go abroad but also go to also politicians, diplomats. If any are watching, please contact us, and we can provide you all the documents, all the materials you need to pressure Norway to fulfill its obligations to OSCE and our international community. Thank you.